Testing, testing. So, good morning. Welcome to the Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for December 13th, 2023. We have meetings from our meeting of December 6th to approve. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
I'll have to. I wasn't there.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. There's one item on today's consent agenda. It's an application for a license to supply electricity from F&D Partners, Inc.
Okay, and I move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes in the information that was provided in the application. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item 2 on the administrative agenda is a request from Cherrywood Solar 1 LLC for an amendment to its Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Christopher Lowe on behalf of staff. On November 9, 2023, Cherrywood Solar 1 LLC filed a request with the Commission to amend the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity in case number 9477 to reflect the change of the project layout. Pursuant to CPCN Condition 2, modification to the project may not be covered by the CPCN and must be reviewed and approved by Caroline County, the PSC, and the Power Plant Research Program. In March 2023, Delmarva Power and Lights notified Cherrywood that the location of the project switchyard needed to be relocated from the west side to the east side of the Keene to steel 230 kV lines to avoid any conductors crossing over or under the lines. The project also required the 3 ring breaker bus configuration to be expandable to accommodate Delmarva interconnection capacity requirement. Because of the ring bus expansion, the fenced area inside the new substation will be increased from 1.8 to 2.9 acres. Cherrywood also requires modifying the revegetation area due to the change of the project layout. Cherrywood, PBRP, and Delmarva have all reviewed and approved their modification to their site plan. As required by CPCN Condition 2, Cherrywood is currently seeking approval of the revised site plan from the county, Caroline County. To date, the county officials have not indicated any concerns regarding the change to the switchyard location. The final approval will be completed no later than the end of February 2024. The company does not expect that the changes will impact the CPCN construction or operational deadlines, and the current in-service date for the project is December 30th, 2025. After review, staff does not object to the changes and concludes that the modification is needed to address reliability and safety issues. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission grant Cherrywood's request to amend the CPCN to accommodate the relocation and the revised design of the project's switchyard and the vegetation area. Thank you.
Okay. So why don't we go with power plant first? So.
Good morning, Commissioner. Sandra McLemore, Assistant Attorney General representing the Power Plant Research Program. On December 8th, Council filed a letter on behalf of PPRP indicating that we had no opposition to the request. With me today is Jenny Rogers, from PPRP, and she's available for any technical questions you may have. Also, we filed the amended condition in red line and clean copy so that you could see what we changed.
So, any questions for either staff or PPRP?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I always ask questions about delays, especially with respect to solar. And I'm not seeing anything that's particularly bizarre in this case or in the next case, but I'm curious, does the PPRP in any way analyze how long it takes for these projects to go from start to finish? Because I know that we here, the hard cases where there's been a 3-year delay or a 2 or a 4-year delay or a lawsuit filed by a local government. But I imagine that, I don't want to skew my opinions about these things based on the hard cases. Do you have any, can you enlighten me as to this?
Yes, Commissioner. I'm having trouble with my microphone. Yes, about 6 months ago, the Power Plant Research Program reached out to council for the various CPCN projects, and we put together a table that showed kind of how long it took from how long to CPCN, how many have not been built, how many have been constructed, and how long it took. And I would be happy to provide that to the commission if that would be helpful.
That would be terrific. I would really love to have a proper opinion about how long these things take, because it began to occur to me that I probably have a more pessimistic view because we only see the hard cases.
And also, recently, we included a condition that said that we would like 6-month update.
Mm-hmm.
And this just recently happened, I think, in the last 3 cases. So that will be helpful, too, to help us understand what is happening and why things are not getting constructed. I would also say that Mr. Bugelman's here would be an excellent person to ask that question to as well.
Well, if he'd like to comment, I'd love to hear him.
Let me, because
If it's okay with the chair.
Well,
Oh, okay.
well, this is
I
just
got
a,
one question here, and then we'll,
Yes,
he'll
this-
be coming up next.
this is
All
just
right.
a follow-up, and Mr. Bugelman can also answer this as well. So in this chart, and I'm very interested in seeing this chart, do you identify in the chart the reasons for any of the delays?
Yes, what we did is we reached out a lot to Mr. Bugelman's here because he represented a lot of the applicants, and we asked them why they weren't able to construct or what was the problem that delayed the construction and everything, and we do have that in the chart.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Bugelmans, without any further ado.
Thank you, Chair Hoover, Commissioners. David Bugelmans on behalf of Cherrywood Solar One LLC. Also have with me this morning Ms. Anna Jelanis and Jason Andrews from the project. With respect to the request, we have nothing to add to staff's excellent presentation. We've also reviewed PPRP's proposed revised conditions and support their adoption today. We have the full team here to answer your questions about this specific project or the request. I guess with respect to the commissioner's questions, it really varies from county to county and project to project why it can take a long time. With this specific project, this project did previously come in for an extension to the CPCN deadlines. That was mostly due to issues related to interconnection and finalizing those agreements. I think at this point, things are going well for the project. But the way CPCNs are structured is once you get the CPCN, you have to go to the county and apply for site plan approval and all the standard local development permits. We're not faulting the county, but you do have those 2 steps. And because of that, especially for a complicated large project like this, it can take a long time. So that's why we're projecting we can meet the deadlines, but it's going to take some additional time to work through those permits. So in my experience, that's often, why we come up against these deadlines is because you get the CPCN, but the work's not done. There's a lot of local permitting and review that has to happen. It just takes a long time to sort that out.
But this is not one of these situations where the county is like slow walking the process, right?
No. My understanding is the county's been very supportive of this project. It's consistent with the county zoning ordinance. They've been supportive from the start. So, again, I'm not faulting the county. There's just these complicated reviews you have to do, and it takes time.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Bugelmans?
Just one over.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Sutton.
So I guess we've got a proceeding coming up this Friday to look at issues around deployment of large-scale solar, and I guess you will let us know if there are any issues on our end, to the extent that there are sort of delays in the process that can be addressed. There's not a whole lot that we can do outside of the scope of our responsibility, but to the extent that there are things that we can do to help to move the process along, you'll let us know.
Yes, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, with that, I move that we grant the company's request to amend the CPCN to accommodate the relocation and revised design of the project's switchyard and Vegetation Area, Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, item number 3 is a joint CPCN commencement deadline extension request from TransSource Maryland LLC, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, and the Potomac Edison Company.
Good morning, Chair Hoover and Commissioners. I'm Roger Austin, presenting this item on behalf of staff. On October 31st, 2023, TransSource Maryland LLC, TransSource Maryland, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company BGE, and the Potomac Edison Company PE filed a joint request for additional extensions of previously extended construction commencement deadlines for CPCNs and CPCN waivers that were granted to each company in case numbers 9470 and 9471. At the time of filing, the companies were still awaiting the resolution of pending federal court legislation challenging the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission's order denying TransSource Pennsylvania LLC's application for a CPCN to construct the portions of the IEC project located in Pennsylvania. The various portions of the IEC project and the PE rebuild project are part of the larger Project 9A. No part of Project 9A can proceed if any other part has not received the necessary regulatory approvals. The companies requested additional extensions until December 31st, 2024 for each construction commencement deadline of the CPCNs and CPCN waivers that were granted to the companies. On December 8th, 2023, TransSource Maryland notified the Commission that on December 6, 2023, the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania entered a judgment in favor of TransSource Pennsylvania with respect to its complaint and closed the case. The Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission has 30 days from December 6th to appeal the District Court's judgment to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. With respect to the project itself, staff concludes that Project 9A remains cost beneficial and will provide economic benefits to Maryland ratepayers through the removal of certain regional transmission congestion costs. Staff has also determined that the amount that has been spent by the companies to date, the sunk cost, have remained relatively flat since the initial expenditures were made when the companies were granted CPCNs and CPCN waivers by this commission in 2019 and 2020. Given these two factors, staff believes that it would be appropriate for the commission to extend the company's construction commencement deadlines and allow the litigation between TransSource Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission to come to a conclusion. Staff recommends that the Commission grant an additional extension of the construction commencement deadline to December 31st, 2024 of the CPCN that was issued to TransSource Maryland to build a new 230 kV transmission line in Washington County as specified in case number 9471. An additional extension of the construction commencement deadlines to December 31st, 2024 of the two CPCN waivers that were issued to Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to add two new 230 kV transmission lines in two of its existing rights of way in Baltimore and Hartford counties as specified in case number 9471. And an additional extension of the construction commencement deadline to December 31st, 2024 of the CPCN that was issued to the Potomac Edison Company to upgrade and rebuild an existing 138 kV line in Frederick and Washington counties as specified in case number 9470. Staff recommends that TransSource be required to provide updates regarding any material changes in the regulatory and PGM status for the IEC project going forward, and that BGE, PE, and TransSource continue to track any spending related to the Maryland portion of the IEC project and provide this spending to the Commission annually. Thank you.
So, let me turn to power plant.
Commissioners, Sandra McLemore on behalf of the Power Plant Research Program. On December 7th, the PPRP filed a letter indicating that we were in support of the company's request, and we are available to answer any questions you may have. And we also support staff's recommendation as well.
I see.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, actually, let me go to
Okay.
People's Council, and then
Yeah, sure.
we'll deal with them before we deal with the company. So,
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. William Fields for the Office of People's Counsel. We did not file a letter on this item, but we do support staff's recommendations, which support granting the waiver with some reporting. I did want to note for the Commission that PJM intends to reevaluate the cost effectiveness of this line in the spring. They do that every year, although right now they have a request to push that out. Instead of doing it around this time of year, they're going to do it they want to do it in the spring because of all the tremendous amount of activity going on in this general area of the grid. And it makes more sense, according to PJM, which sounds right, to look at the cost effectiveness of this after they've finalized what they're going to do for the both Brandon Shores retirement as well as the data center alley window that's been just in the news, just happened this week. So after all that settles down, PJM's going to do a reevaluation of that, and that may impact where PJM is on whether this is, still a reasonable market efficiency project. So with that, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
So, any questions for staff, power plant, or OPC? Commissioner Barvik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick ones. I believe they're quick. From reading the buck sheet, I'm under the impression that the transmission lines are all in existing rights-of-way. Is that correct? Or are there any new rights-of-way?
The IEC West that TransSource is going to construct is in new right-of-way.
I see. Okay, and is that in the state of Maryland, or?
Yes.
Okay. So my next question, and I don't know who to direct this to. I've only been here for 6 months. This is the first time we've had a problem associated with a interstate situation. Am I right to conclude that this is an unusual, rare kind of a problem to hit us in these transmission line cases? Generally speaking?
We're talking amongst ourselves, Commissioner.
I
For
heard the
an
murmuring.
interstate line- Typically, we don't have interstate lines. Most of the transmission cases are.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I should restate my question. In instances where there is a line that goes into and out of the state of Maryland, are those usually not bogged down by these kind of problems? Is this an unusual kind of hiccup?
I would think, and I will turn it over to Mr. Curran too, but I would think that for a green line, which in Pennsylvania there was a significant. In this state, we came up with a solution. We worked together, and it was still opposed, but not as opposed. And so with a green line, it typically is bogged down with litigation because there are usually people that oppose it. So that part I don't think is unusual. But with that, I'll turn it over.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Mr. Dean, do you have anything you want to add, or before we move to the company?
Well, Your Honor, Michael Dean on behalf of staff. In most cases, there's two-way transmission on the transmission line, so it benefits both states. In this case, the power is moving south, so Pennsylvania didn't really see it as a benefit to their customers. So that
Really?
helped drive the litigation.
Pennsylvania doesn't like selling electrons outside of the state?
Well, the Utility Commission, in their order, considered the fact that due to the congestion, since electricity couldn't flow out of Pennsylvania, they have lower electricity rates as a result. So, although it's beneficial to Maryland in that it will reduce our electricity rates, it has the opposite effect in parts of Pennsylvania.
So sort of an example of electron hoarding. You don't have to answer that.
Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fields, if I could just, I had some questions really for the company, or I guess the companies, but since you've already raised this issue about how this cluster of IEC projects, might interact with, I think there are three things that we need to keep in mind. One is the New Jersey SAA, the Brandon Shores, deactivation projects, and then also the Window 3 issues. So I think you've answered the question, but at this point, staff or OPC, you really have not had a chance to hear from PJM, about how this cluster of projects, interacts, I guess, with these other projects, and really, if they still are, needed and cost competitive. So I just want to make sure I understood what you're saying correctly. And also I would take note that OPC didn't, in fact, ask for a delay in the decision, which was not heeded, on the Window 3 projects. So if you had any more you want to add on this.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, this is was approved as a market efficiency project, as Mr. Jean was just talking about, which means the sole basis for it at PJM was, well, maybe I should say the primary driver for it at PJM was this reducing higher prices in certain areas, which, as Mr. Dean was talking about, raises prices in other areas. That's the sole. I keep saying sole. It's probably not quite right. The primary driver for it, when a project is delayed like this, they continue to reevaluate that over time. And when we were talking about this a few years ago, there were some reliability discussions regarding the plant. We don't know exactly where PJM is going to be on that, but it seems like a good chance that those have been overtaken by events from these other activities that you mentioned. So I think the real question is going to be in the spring, when PJM runs the power flow models and all that sort of thing, with the grid as it's going to be, with all of this $5 billion worth of transmission built and the additional, $800 million for Brandon Shores, and as you said, the state agreement approach for New Jersey, with if you assume all that transmission is going to be there, then they look and say, well, how much is this going to save in market prices in the future from that point on, and you compare that to the cost of the project and see what PJM says about that.
Right. So a great deal has changed since 2019 when we first approved this market efficiency project. And I think one of the major concerns and why the Commission wanted to have these annual reviews is really to make sure we were doing all we can as a state to protect ratepayers. I think this cluster of projects, I can't remember, I was trying to look it up today, but somewhere in the order of $300 to $400 million. So, so it's your recommendation today that we just go ahead and provide the extension. Do we need to say anything, or should we be concerned about these, additional costs that might be being expended for the IEC project and potential abandonment costs at this point when we make this decision today?
Well, abandoned cost, I think staff's recommendations on reporting material changes and limiting spending on the project at this point, I think cover what needs to be covered.
Okay.
I think it's certainly something that we should all be, keeping an eye on and keeping track of to see what really comes out of PJM's discussion, PJM's finding, because if PJM says, well, we have all these other transmission lines and all those other transmission lines are going to impact the congestion, then these lines may no longer have that benefit of reducing congestion, and in which case we have to take a hard look at as to whether this is project still needed for Maryland. The abandonment costs.
I should say potential abandonment costs should it not be necessary. Sorry.
Right. I mean, staff has a chart in their buck sheet. I mean, those have been holding steady over the last a couple of years, I think, under the chart. So it doesn't look like there's much additional spending going on, which is good. And that issue will have to be dealt with, if it comes to that.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I would agree that there's a lot of variables now in play. So, we will need all stakeholders to help inform the commission about what we should be doing to again, make sure that, these very expensive transmission projects that we're looking down the barrel at right now, we do all we can to try to keep those in mind and the impact it's going to have on ratepayers in our state. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Field. Thank you, Mr.
Commissioner Sussman.
I just have a question for the company who has not had a chance to,
Well,
to
actually,
speak.
we,
So I thought maybe I would let you speak
Yeah.
and then ask
yeah,
the
so we don't
question.
have, nobody else has any questions for staff, OPC, or power plant. Okay, so go right ahead.
Chair Hoover and Commissioners, good morning. Joseph Curran on behalf of TransSource. I also have with me Hector Garcia Santana from AEP TransSource, who's flown in this morning to be able to answer any questions as well. He was already admitted in this case, Pro Hoc Vici, when it seems many years ago we tried this case in front of Commissioner O'Donnell, and Commissioner Richard remembers those hearings very well. First, I just want to thank staff again for their very thorough comments this morning, and agree again with their recommendations for an extension until December of next year, along with the obligation on our part to report to the Commission of any material changes that may occur between now and next year. I did send you all a letter late last week, as staff informed you that we got a very favorable decision in Pennsylvania from the Pennsylvania Federal Court that essentially overturned the PAPUC's denial of our CPCN in that state, that will allow that process to go forward. But other than that, again, the delay, I understand the Commission gets requests for extensions. This one was driven exclusively by the denial in Pennsylvania, and then the subsequent litigation in Pennsylvania in order to overturn that decision. Thankfully, that has been done, and we can proceed and hopefully build a project that will bring lots of benefits, as staff has indicated, to the state of Maryland. But we're here, we're happy to answer your questions, Commissioner. I understand you have some for us.
So any questions for TransSource?
Yeah, so my question is a timing question. So assuming that PJM makes the decision that the projects, so there are 4 lines, correct? So 3 230 kV and 1 138 kV. Is that the?
One is a PE line that's along
Okay.
existing right.
Okay, the P's. Okay, so
One
let's.
is ours in Washington County, and then there are 2 lines of BG&Es that would, the terminus would be in Harford County.
Okay, so assuming that PJM makes the decision in the spring, how long would it take to build out these lines? So I'm just trying to get a sort of a time, because it seems like a relatively short period, and you're gonna have to order steel, you're gonna have to design. I mean, so where are you in terms of the procurement of the steel, and then what is a timing?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Garcia Santana.
Yeah, aren't you glad I asked that, so
I'm
that
glad. He flew in
flying here was
That
not a
right.
waste. That was, yes.
Good morning, Your Honors. Thank you for having us, and thank you for your continued support of the project. The answer to that question is actually very important. The project is very mature at this point. Materials are in the United States, and they are specific for the project. They are already in hand. The transformers, which are long lead items, are already in the United States as well. They are in hand, and they were acquired at a time prior to now. So the price for that type of equipment has increased since then, so that's an advantage. And there is, I think, about 70% of the right-of-way has already been secured, which is very remarkable for a project of this magnitude, at least for the IEC, for the transverse portion of it. And we have already secured the sites for the substations in Pennsylvania. So from that point of view, the project is very far along, and we are primed to build it now that we have received the order from the federal court, and will be returning to the Pennsylvania Commission to secure the approval for the siting of the lines in Pennsylvania. Of course, there are things that still need to be done, but of all the need that it's in the region, the Transos project and Project 9A, it's the closest thing to completion that we have, and it's primed to come in service much earlier than other upgrades that are also needed in the area. The need, as Consumer Council indicated in the area, it's dire. There is a lot of upgrades that are required to bring energy to load centers and to deal with voltage violations as a result of retirement of generation. So from that point of view, we are confident that the project can be brought in service rather quickly compared to anything else. Just to be more specific, once we secure the approval in Pennsylvania, I understand that the construction process itself, it's between 12 to 18 months. Those things vary from time to time. They can be accelerated. We hopefully don't run into another problem, but the major impediment that we had to deal with, which was resolving the federal litigation, now it's behind us, and that was successful.
So you don't anticipate that you're going to run into a construction commencement issue, given where things are on these projects, it sounds like.
We still need to go through the Pennsylvania approval process.
Right.
So in order to construct the process, Pennsylvania needs to give the green light. But the parameters for that decision were unclear before, and we had a disagreement with the Pennsylvania Commission about how they reached the decision that they did before, and the federal court has confirmed that we were right about that. So we're not out of the woods, but we are the closest thing to a solution that there is, and I am confident that we are moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And then you said that it would be about 12 to 18 months from the date that construction commences to the lines being energized. Is that the...
That's my recollection about the construction estimates at the time.
Okay.
Those estimates might have been developed before some of the real estate has been secured. So those are soft estimates. Those things can take longer, can be done shorter.
Okay.
And we are aiming to do it as fast as we can because we know that the need is very significant.
Thank you. Very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Transource? Commissioner Richard.
Yes, since Transource, you're already there. If you'd like, have you specifically worked with PJM, or are you? I understand this full review is not going to take place until next year, but as far as all the changes that have taken place since 2019 and all the other issues facing the transmission system on our area, do you have any kind of anything from PGM that indicates that the Transource specific, that one part of the cluster of projects, is going to be needed? And I think you had two sections, right? Or was the eastern section completely ceded to PGE?
IEC East and IEC West, you are correct.
Okay, and did you just have the IEC West part of the project?
No, we have them both. The difference is that in the Maryland portion of it, the Maryland portion of, if I recall correctly, the east portion, it could be the other one, but one of them, it's only BGE operates in the Maryland side, but Transource is responsible for both east and west in the Pennsylvania side, and is responsible for the Maryland side in one of them.
Okay.
But to answer your question about communications with PJM, yes, we are in communication with PJM continuously, not only about this project, but about the needs in the area.
Well, I guess
Specifically,
it's not just so much as the needs in the area. I think that's already been determined. I think now we're trying to make sure we're looking at all this suite of projects, whether it's what's the state of New Jersey is intending to build under the SAA. We also have the Window 3, and then of course the projects that are being proposed for Brandon Shore. There's a lot now
That is
that did
correct.
not exist in 2019.
That is correct.
So again, I think what at least I'm concerned about is just the cost of this project. Is that going to just be additive to the 5 billion and the 600 million and all the other
Your Honor.
costs? I just want to make sure we are looking out at this point in time for Maryland ratepayers.
Certainly. The way that, if I understand how that works, in order to make a determination about the need of the project in the future as a market efficiency, they need to do some analysis that the reliability violations and the need in the area is so severe that the analysis cannot be performed. That's the content of the PJM filing in FERC recently, earlier this month. I think it was December 21st. Once the models are completed so that market efficiency can be solved for, one important thing to keep in consideration, I would say it's 3 elements. Element 1, the IEC project is probably one of the things, I'm confident that I can say that it's the fastest thing because it has the level of maturity that it has that can be brought online. So in order to address those needs, bringing the project online, it's important. There are the element of sunk costs that you had indicated, and then to make the determination of the BC ratio, what PJM has done in the past is that it excludes sunk costs because they should not be taken into consideration to find out whether spending the rest of the money is beneficial to the customers, including the Maryland customers. And then the third element of that is that Project 9A, it's an earlier approved project in the RTEP, the planning process for PJM, and it continues to be an approved project. It's just that right now, because of the federal court case, it was in suspension and excluded from the model so that PJM could look at the whole picture. But now that the federal litigation is completed, our expectation is that IEC is going to be added back to the model as part of the analysis of what needs to be done here. It's unclear whether the final determination of PJM it's going to be that the project continues to be needed, and of course, if it wasn't, they would let us know because that's part of their mandate. But this I can tell you, the need in the area is very significant, and IEC is the first thing that can come online.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, and I think what I really wanted to learn today was where PJ is in their process, because that's
They are
the big
studying.
concern.
They are
This was a
studying.
market efficiency project, but now we have a lot of actual violations that are being addressed. And so, again, we're talking about eye-popping amounts of money if all these projects go forward that are going to really be heavy for Maryland ratepayers to pay. So I just
Certainly.
would like to know where we are in the PGM process. I'm prepared to accept the staff and OPC recommendation today.
Thank you.
But again, I have a lot of dissatisfaction with the PJM planning process or lack thereof, and really the reactive nature of how we've just gotten to today. And so I think it's very important that we watch these projects carefully, and I, as being very involved with the organization of PJM states, really would like to see some important reforms made in how we plan going forward, because again, where we've gotten to today is just, again, it's going to be very expensive if we just pursue all the projects that are currently on the table. So with that, I thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Aaron.
Thank you for being here today. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
So, any other questions for TransSource? Okay, so let me turn to BG&E first. Hear their portion of the project.
Good morning, Chair Hoover. Good morning, Chair Hoover, Commissioners. Brent Belay on behalf of BGE. I'm here to answer any questions if you have them,
So,
but
any questions for BG&E for their part?
Okay.
And anybody here for Potomac Edison? All right.
Morning, Chairman Hoover, Commissioners, Robin Leone on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company, and I'm also available to answer questions. Thank you.
Any questions for PE?
I guess I'd just ask, Mr. Chair, I mean, do you have any comments, again, how your companies are again, monitoring your work with PJM to ensure that the transmission system in Maryland doesn't become, unaffordable for Maryland ratepayers?
I think we're all concerned about that, Commissioner, and we're kind of in a holding pattern a little bit right now. I mean, for one thing, as has been discussed here today, PJM is going to be looking at all of this again in the spring, it sounds like. In addition to that, the litigation is not quite resolved in Pennsylvania. There's a 30-day appeal period. The Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission could decide to appeal that. So there's some uncertainty here. But I think certainly looking at all these projects together holistically is an important thing to look at the costs and benefits to Maryland ratepayers.
And Potomac Edison would concur that is something that we're always looking at with respect to all of the transmission projects that are going on in the state.
Great, and I would just, thank you. I'm glad you used the word holistic approach, because that is something the organization of PJM states is reaching out to PJM and asking to how we can move beyond just the reactive planning process, if you want to call it planning, that we have now, and move to genuine planning. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Suchman.
Yeah, so I guess I just have, and I don't know if that you have an answer to this question, but if the Pennsylvania Public Service Commission, Public Utilities Commission, decides to appeal the decision, so I'm assuming at that point things are sort of put on hold, do you have an alternative approach that you would want to take going into the spring PJM consideration of project build out? I mean, is there a plan B, in other words?
Your Honor, I cannot speak for the planning process for PJM specifically to the project. Unless the district court decision its state, even if there was an appeal, our plan is to continue to pursue the approval of the project, because we want to make sure that it's done as soon as possible. So if somebody puts the brake on us, of course we cannot move forward, but our intention is to put the accelerator on, and even if there was an appeal, as long as the decision is not stayed, we're going to be pursuing the approvals that are required so that the project can come online.
Okay, but you're not thinking about a possible alternative to the extent that, I mean, if the Pennsylvania Commission is successful in the courts, and so that's a piece of the project that can't move forward.
Yeah, Your Honor, that's correct. To elaborate on what you're asking and what Commissioner Richard is indicating, the planning process is regional, and PJM, it's kind of like the entity that conducts that process. So to the extent that the need for the project it's present, then we transfers are obligated to construct it. We have a contractual duty to construct it. But if PJM were to determine that the project was no longer needed, then they would let us know.
Okay.
And the one thing that I wanted to add also in connection with what Commissioner Richards was indicating, just a reminder that the purpose of the project is reduce energy costs. It relieves congestion, which it's another way of saying it lowers costs by bringing energy to where it's needed from where it can be generated very efficiently. So the whole point of the project is actually to lower costs. And it will not be constructed if it's not effective in providing benefits to customers.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we actually have three motions, one for each of the companies, and I think I'm going to take them separately as opposed to putting them all together. So the first motion is to grant an additional extension to December 31st, 2024 of the construction commencement deadline of the CPCN that was issued to TransSource Maryland LLC to build a new 230 kV transmission line in Washington County as specified in case 9471 and comply with the reporting requirements in staff's comments. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Next, I move that we grant an additional extension to December 31st, 2024 of the construction commencement deadlines for the two CPCN waivers that were issued to Baltimore Gas and Electric to add two new 230 kV transmission lines in two of its existing right-of-ways in Baltimore and Harford counties as specified in case 9471 and comply with the reporting requirements as specified in staff's comments. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. And finally, I move that we grant an additional extension to December 31st, 2024 of the construction commencement deadlines of the CPCN that was issued to Potomac Edison to upgrade and rebuild an existing 138 kV transmission line in Frederick and Washington counties as specified in case number 9470 and comply with the reporting requirements as specified in staff's comments. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
Thank you.
And you're voting aye too.
Oh, and I vote aye.
Yeah.
I forgot.
It's going to be 3-1.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's right, yeah.
Mr. Chair, item number 4 consists of the annual stride filings of Elkton Gas Company.
Good morning, Chair Hoover and the commissioners. This item addresses the report filed by Elkton Gas on November 1, 2023 on the company's progress in replacing gas mains and services pursuant to Elkton Gas's implementation of the Strategic Infrastructure Development Enhancement Plan. The company's November 1, 2023 report includes information on the projects on the Utilities 2023 STRIDE project list, as well as a final update on the outstanding projects from 2022 progress report, including 1, project location, the status of each project, actual length of main and the length of main pipe installed, and the number of services, the total expenditures, and 5, STRIDE charge for 2024. The November 1, 2023 Elkton's annual STRIDE progress report does not include data on the variance between the forecasted cost and the actual cost of Elkton Gas STRIDE projects. Elkton Gas indicated that the variance in the project spent dollars is attributable primarily to the company's ability to achieve operational savings, not anticipated at the time of Elkton Gas's previous owner originally estimated the cost for the projects in this plan. Elkton Gas did not file a project list for 2024. Staff recommends that the Commission notes the filing of the company's 2023 project list and accept for filing the company's proposed 2024 surcharges.
So, any questions for staff? So,
Good morning, Chairman Hoover and Commissioners. Brian Quinn on behalf of Elkton Gas. Appreciate staff's buck sheet and obviously agree with it and here to answer any questions. I've got some representatives in the company if you need it.
okay. Any questions for Elkton Gas? All right, with that, I move that we
Mr.
note.
Chairman, I meant to say, sorry to interrupt, and at the risk of going on, I wanted to tell a good story here, though. These projects came in on time and under budget.
All right. There we go.
That's good.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Barve.
Okay.
Hey, it doesn't happen every day.
That's right.
It's good to know that we can build the plaque here.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
Amen. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Chairman.
So anyway, I move that we note the filing of Elkton Gas Company's 2023 Stride project list, and then we accept for filing the company's proposed 2024 surcharges. Commissioner Schlesman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbie.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye. I vote aye.